Hey, and welcome back to KneeToKnee. I'm your host, Mark Merritt. And today we're going somewhere we haven't gone before. And for that matter, many men's podcasts won't go. We're talking about intimacy, connection, and the kind of closeness that actually makes a relationship work over the long haul. My guest today is Melissa Barton. She is a licensed therapist, a couples therapist, and yes, a sex therapist. And before you click away, stick with me because this conversation is not what you think. It's really about something every man on this show cares about: being known, being seen, and figuring out how to actually connect with your person. Melissa's husband, Brad, was actually on the show a few weeks back, and he's the one who said, "You've got to have Melissa on." And he was right. If you've been listening to KneeToKnee and this one hits home for you, do us a favor and hit that like button and make certain to subscribe. It genuinely helps us get this content in front of more men who need it. So, all right, let's get going and get KneeToKnee with Melissa. Yes, and welcome everyone to another episode of KneeToKnee. I am, sometimes we get some great referrals that come through that say, "Hey, I really have to talk to this person." And this is one of those. We have with us Melissa Barton, as I mentioned in our introduction. Amazing credentials. And I didn't mention in the introduction that her husband, Brad, who we had on a few weeks ago, is actually the one that says, "You got to have Melissa on." So, Melissa, I'm so excited to have you here today.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we cover a lot of different things on the podcast, and those of you that are just joining us, we cover a lot of things that focus on helping men to navigate all the different areas of their life. And with Melissa's background as a therapist, and specifically, and I'm going to say the word, Melissa, you asked earlier, specifically as a sex therapist. So we're going to throw that out. We're going to get that out there right away.
Thanks.
So we want to help men navigate through life with all those. This is just one of those aspects that men, the different stages. If you remember, when you're 25, you're one way. When you're 35, you might be a little different. And you're 45. So life changes and those things adapt. So the question that I'm going to have for you, Melissa, to kick us off is because someone in their early 20s, mid 20s, very different than they are when they're 45. So how is someone going to manage that aspect and those changes that happen throughout that?
And you're talking about sex,
Yes, I am.
or you're talking about connection, right? Intimacy.
Yes, connection,
It changes,
intimacy,
right?
all
But
that. Yeah.
it changes, and it's really the same. I
Okay.
sit with men and women of all ages, 16 up to all ages at the top, right? And what is really there, right, is the connection piece that people desire to be seen. They desire to be desired. They desire to be truly known. And that's especially true for men. I have been honored, deeply honored, to sit in front of men who have expressed deep feelings of not being seen, not being loved, and having their sexual energy be seen as harmful or abusive or misunderstood. And they really want their partner to understand that this is like, I just want you to love me, to see me, to hold
Yeah.
me. So that does change over a lifetime. It doesn't mean it's not there in the 20s. I kind of call it the beating drum, maybe from testosterone, is a little bit stronger in your 20s, right?
You're using the
Not
bass
so
drum
much,
in your 20s and you
right?
go to a smaller
Yeah.
bongo later on.
Well, it kind of changes into
Ah,
oxytocin more. Oxytocin's there in the 20s too, but the desire to feel truly connected to my partner as a man in my 50s or 60s. I mean, just this last couple of weeks, I've had several men that have said again to me, "I feel like my body's changing. It's not that I don't want to be sexually active with my partner. I do still, but there's a different feeling that I really want to connect." And it's
mhm.
from a feeling of that bonding hormone, that release, and to be able to teach men and women to be able to stay in the moment of around the sexuality and let that oxytocin flow. It's called afterglow. And so staying after some of the actions of the sexual experience and being able to stay together and connect and cuddle. And there's many couples that I've worked with that didn't know that, or that they don't practice it. So that's kind of their homework to do. We like give homework sometimes to do that. I am a couples therapist, not just a sex therapist, and an individual therapist also. And so to sit with a man when his partner I've never met. Maybe I've worked with a man several years, up to 5 years more, and I've never met his partner or his wife because she, for a variety of reasons, doesn't feel like she can come in, and she's got a lot of trauma. So being able to work with him and how to help him to have a language to be able to connect with her and to kind of say these are my deep desires, these is what I'm really hoping for, and instead of his protection of never saying anything. So that's kind of a long answer to the differences between
Yeah.
20s up to 50s and 60s, but down deep it's always, very tenderly, a person wants to be known. Sexual intimacy is one of the most beautiful ways in a healthy, in a safe, we're going to be very clear on that. We're not talking about abusive or, betrayal. It's like these other stressful relationships where that's not a safe place. But we're talking about the deep, safe areas, right? Is that's where a person, both man and a woman, want to be truly known. And men get kind of the bad rap sometimes that they just want to have sex and they don't really see their person, right? And then their person saying, well, this just feels like duty. So yeah, that's kind of that's kind of what it feels like.
It crosses my mind when you mentioned that you've had men come in, you've been helping them for quite some time, and their partner hasn't come in or whatever. It crossed my mind that, first of all, those men that do come in and spend time with you and others in this area, that's a big step. But I think there's so many men that, we've been conditioned to just buck up, you know, pull your boots up by your bootstraps, whatever, whatever thing you want to call it, right? We've been conditioned that way since, especially when you get into the millennials, the older millennials and into Gen X, we've been conditioned that just, pull up your bootstraps, just keep going.
And put your head down, right? Just
Yeah.
stay in
Yeah.
line, do the thing, don't say anything, don't rock
You'll
the
get through
boat.
it. It'll be fine.
Yeah, keep being nice, be Mr. Nice Guy, you keep doing that.
How do we help men? How do we help these individuals be able to feel comfortable in that first step of even calling to find some help?
Right. Even calling. I love that. So it reminds me of a gentleman that I where he's had just gone through a divorce and he really needed to talk to someone because he felt like his sexuality, he didn't know if it was normal to have desire. And it was a very vulnerable first several meetings because as I told him, you're normal to have sexual desire. And as to watch him just kind of break down and cry and say, I didn't know. I just this has been a really confusing for me in this relationship for a long time. So with him, kind of talking to him how he felt reaching out for help. It's hard, and it's hard inside a relationship to reach out for help and to say to call a therapist or call someone, a close friend, someone on your team to say, I'm suffering. I need some help. How do you do that, right? It's just
Yeah.
knowing that we really cannot do this alone and we got to have support. To be alone in this place is basically death. It's loneliness, right? As we know, is the leading cause of death. And so to say, I've got to reach out because we get stuck in these places. I think of a maze and a person gets stuck somewhere and then they just like they camp out right there
Hmm.
of creativity and courage and beauty. And they just, okay, well, that's not for me because she says no or whatever in their relationship and it's hard. And so they just kind of camp out. And so with everything, it comes down to risk. If you don't, with Sue Johnson from EFT, she says, if you don't risk, you don't get. And so many people just like give up. They just give up, sit down, camp out, and think this is good enough. And that breaks my heart. That breaks my heart
Yeah.
because if we don't ever speak from our heart and let our heart be shown, and for men, they haven't been taught how to do this. A lot of times, some men have, but most men have not
The
learned, like you
vast
just said.
majority of us have not.
have not learned how to share from the heart and to share their vulnerabilities because it looks like weakness. And as you know, I mean, probably some of the conversations you've had in your life, that it takes the most incredible courage to speak for something that you need. And if you need help from a therapist, if you need help from your person, to not stop, figure out a way, figure out a way. And if that feels like there's never a way, then there's other options, right? Because I don't want a person to camp. Now we got a lot of other things going on here as far as a relationship goes that I want to make sure I validate, because relationships have all kinds of things going on. There's two
Mhm.
stories, and most of the clients I work with in couples do have both people sitting there. But when there's not, I'm not going to just say, "You're so great, you're so great." We really validate the person that's not there too, and the struggles that she or he has, and the
Yeah.
trauma and the narratives, right? Because that's important. It's not just like we're throwing mud all over the person that couldn't, for a variety of reasons, join, right? To
Mhm.
to grow. Those are validated to be validated also.
Yeah, you mentioned, yeah, a couple things you mentioned, and it popped in my head when you mentioned that about loneliness. We had an episode several months ago with a lady named Julie Hotz, and she had the episode solely was on loneliness, and it specifically was talking about how in one of the studies that she was looking at was that when you are lonely, you don't have those good connections. Sometimes I think, if I remember correctly, and I'm going to get someone correct me if I'm wrong, but if I remember correctly, it was similar to smoking 15 cigarettes a day when you have deep loneliness.
Yes.
And so when you mention
It's
that's a
still.
leading cause, it's, we think, especially if someone is, I go to the gym, I work out, I do this, I don't eat bad things, but yeah, but if you're deeply lonely, there's other health issues that happen because of that. And so that was the first thing that came to mind when you mentioned that. And then, you talk about, I remember one time where I actually picked up the phone and called someone, and it was really because my wife was, "You need to call somebody. You got to call," because to talk to someone who could help. This was after my accident, and I was feeling so much guilt about what our family was going through because of a decision I made. And I mean, it was months and months that I was just so struggling with that. And it was finally my wife going, "Just call someone." And I don't remember the lady's name. It was one of those, the company I worked for had one of those employee assistance programs, the EAP, where you could
Yeah,
pick up
yeah,
the
yeah.
phone and you call somebody. And the lady, I think she was from New Zealand or Australia, something like that, right? And we had like a couple of visits, but it was amazing just in those couple of visits how she was able to help reframe that for me so that I wasn't sitting stewing in my own
Yeah.
crappy
Your own
feelings.
pain,
Yeah,
guilt,
yeah.
and all those stories that were in your mind. And I call that unblending, right? Or internal family systems is kind of a word. We call that unblending, right? Unblending yourself from the emotions, right? And it took risk for you to make that phone call, right? I mean, I
Mhm.
don't know if she was right there with a stick in your side, right? So it was forced risk, right? But it took risk. And then as you do that, you grow and then you step up on that one. Couples and individuals are really stuck in their lives, all kinds of ways, because they don't risk and they're afraid. And so they just do their protective moves over and over and over, right? Like you said, head down, or they
Mhm.
shut down, they don't make a problem, or they get angry, right? I have many clients that show up angry when they're having a lot of emotions, right? Men and women do too. It's not just men. The one I'm thinking of is a man that shows up with his anger, right? When he is frustrated. And so he throws that at her, but really underneath it's all this sadness and this pain and this loneliness.
Yeah,
So through emotionally focused therapy that I use for couples is to be able to have them turn to each other and say, it makes me, I mean, I did this all day today. So it's really dear to my heart and I watched it today. So I'm right in there, but to have
yeah,
someone turn to their partner and say, "But it looks like anger to you, what looks like me, just with my face underneath, it's this pain and I'm sad and I want to tell you about my sadness." And with this kind of therapy, right, just kind of scary, we have the one person turn to the other person and look at them in their eyes and say, "This is what it's actually. You see this, which is really scary to you. You see my anger and you go away. But down deep, it's my pain." And today, this gentleman, he's saying, I didn't know that her walls and her angry was actually that she cared about me, and that's the way she's trying to save our relationship, because if she's not angry, then she's going to stay in sadness, and if she stays in sadness, she's going to die, right? It feels like. And so she puts on this protective layer, right, to be okay, which makes him feel like, well, I'm in trouble all the time. I can't ever get anything right. Right. And we just go round and round in this cycle. And so I love the name of your podcast, KneeToKnee, because that's what we're doing in these sessions, right? We call them real play, right? Role play, real play. Have them turn and practice, because couples and men, especially, but women too, women have an easier time. We are a lot more vulnerable with each other. We're like, hey, tell, tell me your deepest fear. Tell me what it feels like to be you. We just kind of do that with each other, and men don't. So this is an opportunity for men to be able to look at their girl or their partner and say, this has been hard for you, and this is actually what I'm feeling. And they look at each other in their eyes, which are the window to the soul. And
Yes.
some of them have such a hard time to even look at each other in each other's eyes. They block it. They'll make a joke, or they'll be like, like they'll look sideways, or they'll look at me and say, do I have to do this? And I'm like, you've been married to this person for
Yeah.
25 years. I got you. I'm going to be with you right here as you look at him or her, and like really feel each other's heart, because that vulnerability, you can't hide that in the eyes, and that, the real feelings come out. And it's just the most glorious experience for me to witness, because right in those moments, I just step back and pretend I'm a fly on the wall and just say, I'm not here. I'm just right. It doesn't always land like that. And I know what to do when it doesn't. Right. And so it's
It'd
just
be nice if
beautiful.
it was, but that, yeah, we're all people
Well,
on the other end.
to
Yeah.
me, if it doesn't, it's okay, because
Mhm.
that just means there's another layer of something beautiful to be found, right? It doesn't scare me, because I'm like, oh, there's something right there. There's something right there. There's a story that hasn't been told. So,
Yeah.
using this with emotions, because all people need emotional safety. Yes, women need a lot of emotional safety to feel sexually have desire, or even have an idea to be responsive desire. And men, it's a lot easier for men to feel more spontaneous, and they feel a lot more, I'm known and loved through sexual activity. They feel like, I'm a hero, I got this, I'm your guy, I'm a great lover, and I can slay the dragons for you, because right. And we got to have both
Yeah.
of them, but each person needs both. And so to have a couple turn to each other and experience the emotional intimacy right in front of me, which is kind of weird, right? I feel like I shouldn't be there, but this emotional intimacy creates this beautiful place for them to do other things. Not always that day or something, if there's some things that they're still working through, but it sets that groundwork of safety, as I believe, and
Right.
I think you do too, and we all do. But I don't think it's known enough that safety is the number one thing that all of us need, to be able to share our feelings and emotions. We have to feel safe first.
We all tend to gravitate towards whatever that is to help us feel safe.
Mhm.
Whether it's I'm throwing up a wall, or I get defensive, or I get controlling, or whatever it is, those are all
Right.
safety mechanisms
But those
that
are tend ones. Those are called protectors, right? They're
okay.
they're the, they're not safety. They are protectors. They're
Right.
are fake, right? They're maladaptive, dysfunctional ways that we feel safe. So that's what I do personally, right? I go away. I'm more of a avoidant attachment person. So if my person does something, I'm like, bye bye, gone. Inside of me, I'm gone, and he gets big. Right? When he gets stressed, he gets bigger and more words and talking to me and coming towards me, which that makes me want to go away. So teaching couples how to, right? You can see the cycle goes around and around, right? That's why
Yeah,
I
that
have
was
this.
exactly, yeah.
That's on purpose. I wear a affinity symbol all the time to represent the cycle in couples, and it looks like it's a negative cycle, but really it's a beautiful place to learn more about each other if you know how to do it. And this is about learning how to be empathetic. You have to learn. Like, I
Mhm.
don't know truly if I have ever met somebody that truly didn't know that that just were empathetic just by their birth, except for maybe, holy Jesus, right? Buddha, right? Things like that. Mother Teresa. But we have to learn how to be empathetic, to be with someone. Because if I said to you, Mark, guess what? This guy today cut me off on the freeway and it was so horrible. And he almost almost crashed, almost died. You'd be like, that's so horrible. That was wow. Tell me more about that. But if I say, Mark, you did this to me today. You made me feel bad. You are late, right? You are late for our podcast, right? If I said that, right? If I said you did that, you'd
And
be
those
like,
of you that know, yes, I was a couple minutes late coming on. So she's throwing me under the bus on my own podcast.
but I mean, like 30 seconds, but I had to use something, right? So if I say you're late, what are you going to do? What does that feel like in your body in that very moment? You feel those defensive feelings come up. Like you want to explain to everybody, this is what was happening. I've been sleep deprived, right? Instead of learning to be like, take a deep breath and say, yeah, what was that like for you, Melissa? What was that like for you? I want
Yeah.
to know more about you. I want to know what that was like for you. And that is a hard place to learn how to do, but it's a glorious place to learn how to do. And I get to learn it all the time because I have so many children that say, Mom, you did this, you did this. And I'm like, no, I didn't. Don't you know why I was doing that? And I can say, hey, what was that like for you? What was that like for you, 15 years ago when you said I did something? And instead of me saying, I was doing such a good job, don't you know what I was going through back then? It was so hard. I didn't drop you. They're like, okay, well, I'm not going to talk to you anymore because you don't really care and you don't listen to me. You don't want to know about my feelings. You just want to defend yourself. So we call this a bridge.
Mhm.
Just real quick, the bridge, right? So we've got my person, Brad, and me. And if we go to the middle of the bridge, which a lot of times we say, let's go to the middle of the bridge and let's work this out. Well, that's bad because you go to the middle of the bridge and you sword fight, right? It's like you bring your defensive, you got your withdraw, you got your like hit, you got your like, I'm going to hide. So what you do is you take this person, Brad or me, and he comes all the way over into my story and says, what was that like for you? And he sits with me until my nervous system feels better, which through research, we know our lizard brain stays activated for a minimum of 15 minutes. And so, our visual, our hearing goes down. And so he stays with me and keeps asking me, he's had to learn how to do this because his protectors say, oh, this is so unfair what she just said, right? And then later, not right after, but within 6 hours or a couple of days later, I go over to him or vice versa, right? And I say, Brad, what was that like to hear those stories that I was saying about you? What came up for you and where did you go with that, right? And that's how we do it. That's a beautiful way, and it's pretty
Yeah.
simple, right? To be able to say and to master how to be with someone instead of saying, I hear my story. You're telling me something like when I said that to you, you heard your story, you heard your stuff instead of still hearing what I was saying, right? It was fast, it's automatic, right? Your little feelings, right? And so to be able to not listen for your own story as you're hearing another person's story is incredible experience. And it takes a
That's
little
a,
bit
yeah.
to
I was just going to say that takes some time and some skill to develop that because we've all conditioned ourselves to, if you say something, we often are thinking about what we're going to respond to, how we're going to respond to that, even before you're done talking. And I think, we actually had an episode just come out today. And on that episode, it was really great because I was talking to ironically, another Brad. Um, I was talking, yeah, his name is Brad Zeman. And I was talking to Brad and he talked about approaching life with curiosity. And
yeah,
we
yeah,
were kind
that's
of
the word.
having that conversation. And I think that's what you're describing there is when your Brad comes all the way over the bridge to approach with some curiosity, where are things at, how, really trying to find out for real and listen and really connect that way.
And then he'll be able to drop down into what's really deep down inside, which is not my 50-year-old problems. It's my deep down pains of a child. Like I have a ring that says, I am enough. He will always find that down there. And then he's with me. And that's where this beautiful healing can take place because trauma is when you're alone in a place when you're young or anytime. It's traumatizing because you were alone. Nobody cared. Nobody knew. Right. And so to have him kind of come into their co-regulation and be with me in that place. And when you use the word curiosity, that's my favorite word ever. Like
Yeah.
that's if I could just, put that right on my head, curiosity. I always tell my clients, okay, put your curious hat on or hold the listening pillow, right? It's not the talking pillow or the talking stick. It's the listening pillow, right? Learn an extreme radical listener and be curious. And you cannot do that if you're in your own defensive places. And you have to literally think to yourself, what am I feeling? I'm feeling anger. Okay, I'm going to set that over there by the wall. It's going to go eat a sandwich. I trust that my partner, because we're learning how to do this, is going to come back and help me with that in a minute. Right now, I'm going to be all the way into her story. And men, right? This is hard. They weren't taught how to do this. And to watch men in my office over and over and over say, I never knew how to do emotions. They always look like this, regulate, be tough, just be awesome. Don't have feelings, right? And there's a variety of how men were taught how to do that or not. Doesn't mean everybody had these horrible childhoods or anything, but we learned how to produce, be a certain way. So to watch men be vulnerable, I don't know if there's a better or more beautiful sight in the whole world. I have quite a soapbox for men and how they're misunderstood, right? It's just a massive soapbox because I just know, I've sat with so many men and truly witness their heart, and my own sons witness their hearts and their true desires and how they get messed up with their actions, and their actions can be quite harmful to relationships, right? So can a woman. I'm not I'm
Hmm.
not picking on to one person, but actions can be quite harmful. And so to be able to teach a couple truly what those actions mean and how they're trying to protect, but not give them like um, a free range to use that kind of behavior.
Right.
Curiosity on how each of them feel underneath, and it changes the whole story, it changes the whole energy, and it takes time, right? This doesn't just happen overnight. When there's truly like a lot of betrayal trauma and a lot of hurt in a relationship, that takes time. It's not like, hey, we're going to go in for 3 or 4 sessions and get this through. How many years did it take? Just many of my clients that are in later years, they haven't been talking to each other for 35 years. They never had these kind of conversations ever, ever. And so now they're like, it's almost like I want to say, hey, would you like to turn to your partner and say, I'd like to get to know you. Nice to meet you. My name is so and so, right? Because they truly don't know each other. I mean, one of my couples today, they don't know each other for all these years, and they've had many babies together, many trips and things, and they don't know each other. It's like surface level. It's so sad.
I think that's something you're right. That is a very sad thing to take a look and someone who's been together that long. But I think it's important as I think all of us, we want to be able to have that deep connection with that other person. And I have to tell you, I so appreciate you coming on today and us talking about this. I love the aspect of going all the way across the bridge and not sword fighting in the middle. And and so I think that's so important, and I think that's something that as men we can easily do with some practice.
Taking turns, right? Because a lot of times people will go and feel one person's feelings, but then they end there, and the relationship's not taught to go back and
Yeah,
get
it's got
that
to go
other
back
person
the
out.
other way. Yeah, yeah,
We got to get usually that man out of jail, because he's the one a lot of times doing, hey, how'd it feel, honey? Right? We got to get that man out of jail and feel loved again and seen again. So yes, yes,
awesome.
the bridge concept is full.
I love that. I love that. So, well, thank you. And so we're going to wrap up today with our one question that we love to ask. So, based off of our conversation today, what is one thing that someone can do to build deeper connections with those around them?
Kind of recap: extreme listening, radical listening, right? And a little bit of a reminder is you have two ears on your head, and you take those ears off your head and you put them together, they create a heart. I don't know if you ever knew that. And
No,
look
I
at the
didn't.
right, and look at the word heart in the middle. It says EAR, HEART. So it has ear in the middle of heart. So to become a radical listener and to make your first word a breath. When somebody says something to you that you doesn't feel very good in your body and you feel that in your body, take a deep breath and say, what am I doing here? I'm going to be a radical listener. I'm not going to make this story about me. And watch your world completely change
Yeah.
for the better.
No, I love that.
Connection,
I
more
mean,
intimate.
doing that breath ahead of time gives you the sense to pause, but it also goes back into breathing therapy a little bit as well, where you're adding some extra oxygen in, you're helping you to just calm those feelings down a little bit. So awesome.
Nervous system. drop. Beautiful.
Yep. Melissa, thank you so much for coming on. I'm so glad that Brad suggested that you come on. And we appreciate you spending a few minutes with us. And those of you that are just joining us for the first time, welcome. And those of you that have been coming back time and time again, thank you. Please make certain that you like and share. We want to have and get this content out to as many people as we can. So please don't hesitate to give us a shout out. If something comes up and you really want to share that out with the world, I would appreciate that. So thank you again, Melissa, and everyone.
You, Mark. I enjoyed this, and thank you for letting me pick on you just a little bit. If you need any clarity for that, I'll give you 5 minutes for free.
That's okay. I'm the butt of joke all over the place. I have fun with it. I don't mind at all. So,
Okay, you
so
did
thank you,
so great.
everybody. And we will catch you on the next go around. Thanks.